Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, let's look at some head coaching candidates for the 2024 season since the Las Vegas Raiders have finally fired Josh McDaniels. In the meantime, Antonio Pierce is going to take over as an interim head coach, and who knows, maybe the Raiders will smarten up and actually keep him if they do figure out a way to make a run like they did with Rich Bisaccia. But man, we were live for over 24 hours. Shit. Me, Jugs, Rolly, Trace, shout out to Chip and shout out to Jace even for getting this thing going, the entire Chat Sports team. Over 26 straight hours of live coverage on the Raiders Report, and we made you guys a promise. If you're the type of Raider fan that likes that type of content, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, because when the Raiders do finally announce their brand new head coach, we will be going live. We're going to be partying. It just might not be for 24 straight hours. All right, so coming up here, we don't have an exact order in terms of how much I like each of these candidates to be the next head coach, but I have some offensive-minded guys. I have some defensive-minded guys. And at the very, very end, I'm going to read off the current odds on who is the favorite to be the Raiders' next head coach. Let's go to Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. And this is a dude that I like a lot. If you told me, Mitch, who's like your number one guy out there that you want the Raiders to hire from an offensive mind, it's Ben Johnson, the OC of the Lions. So Johnson joined Detroit in 2019 as an offensive quality control coach. He was the Lions' offensive ranking, or helped them get up to the number 4 in yards last season. I think he's done a hell of a job getting Jared Goff back on the right track. And sure, he doesn't have a lot of offensive coordinator experience, but when you watch how this Lions offense has adapted, how much those players play for him, they go out there, they compete. The fact that he's learning right now underneath Dan Campbell, like, to me, I like the idea of bringing in a Ben Johnson, a player's coach, because after McDaniels, I think you might have to go that route. Let's go to the next name here. It's Shane Waldron, and Waldron was definitely one of the names I considered when I thought, okay, if they decide to keep Dave Ziegler, obviously they also fired Ziegler. And I was like, well, I know Waldron and Ziegler do have a relationship. And if Mark Davis says, you know what, I still want to be able to keep maybe some of these coaches that are from the Ziegler and McDaniels tree, I do think Waldron is at least a name to keep in mind. He coached the Patriots from 2008 to 2009, so I'm sure that there's some people out there like, Mitch, I don't want this guy simply because of that. He's done a phenomenal job with Geno Smith overall, and if the Raiders want to go with another young offensive mind who's come from a pretty successful coaching tree, I think Shane Waldron's a nice name to keep in mind. Let's go to the next one here. This is going to raise some eyebrows. It's Lincoln Riley. It's more for the big name, and if the Raiders just finish the year and they're just an absolute disaster, right? And you have the number 1 overall pick, you have an opportunity to get Caleb Williams. I do think that I got to say this because the only way that I am hiring Lincoln Riley is if you have the number 1 overall pick and you know for a fact that you're going to draft Caleb Williams. So you bring in Riley, you bring in Caleb Williams as that little bit of a duo overall. But to me, the only way that you are doing this is if you know for a fact that you're getting Caleb Williams. And the only way that you know for a fact that you're going to get the USC quarterback is if you have the number 1 overall pick. I don't see the Raiders being that bad. I see the Raiders really rallying behind Antonio Pierce. That dude makes you want to run through a wall, but you might have to make him the highest paid head coach in NFL history to get him to leave USC, to get him to come coach Caleb Williams, a player that he coached at Oklahoma. Then they went from Oklahoma to USC. Could they now make that transition to the National Football League? Let's go to another college coach here. It's the name that a lot of y'all keep throwing out there. It's Jim Harbaugh, and Harbaugh was one of the top candidates. It was reported that Harbaugh was the favorite to get the job when the Raiders decided to go the route that they did with Josh McDaniels. But Harbaugh and Mark Davis, they have a phenomenal relationship. And in fact, Harbaugh's very first time that he was coaching in the NFL, you got to go all the way back to the Raiders. I want to say it was like 1997. It was really, really early on in his career, but he worked with Al Davis, and I know that Mark respects what Jim Harbaugh's been able to do at the college level, but also at the NFL level as well. He's been able to do both. He's been able to be successful. Sure, there's some, we'll call it drama going on right now at Michigan. I do not see him going back to the Wolverines, and if he's ready to dip his toe back into the NFL waters, there's going to be a lot of NFL teams vying for him, and to me, the Raiders are going to be one of those teams because of his relationship with Mark Davis. Now, what I want to know from everyone watching right now, this will be the pinned comment on today's show. Who will be the Raiders head coach next season? You're about to get hit with the YouTube ad break. Scroll on down. Give me your answer. Take a guess. Put your money where your mouth is. Who's going to be the Raiders head coach next season? Let's go to another offensive-minded guy here. It's Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. And to me, I want somebody who's going to be able to work with a quarterback. Let's face it. I have hope in Aiden O'Connell. I don't really view him as being the long-term franchise option. I see O'Connell being a little bit more of this solid backup QB role for, I don't know, maybe 4, 5, 6 years. I hope that he proves me wrong. But Johnson has done a phenomenal job with Jalen Hurts' development. I think the Philadelphia Eagles in general have done a really good job with that development. And to me, I want to find somebody that's got a track record, right? Even though this is his first time as being an OC, if you will, I want somebody that has a track record with quarterbacks, and he has had that solid track record. And let's face it, the Raiders need to be able to go out and they need to find their franchise quarterback. So if you're sitting there early on in the draft and you're like, man, am I going to get a Caleb Williams, a Drake May, maybe a Penix Jr., somebody that you know has to hit? Because whoever that quarterback that you end up drafting this year, he's got to hit. And Brian Johnson, I do think, could get the best out of him coming from the Philadelphia Eagles. Who knows? Might even be able to steal Howie Roseman. I'm kidding. All right, y'all. Also, we got some more candidates coming up here, but today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. And if you haven't already getting started with our awesome sponsor, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a $100 deposit match. If you're wondering, Mitch, can I go and put some money down on the Raiders? The answer to that is yes. If you want to go put some money down on the NBA, I know a bunch of the guys here at Chat Sports really personally enjoy putting some money maybe on some Steph Curry three-pointers, LeBron James rebounds. They have a bunch of different options. It's not just around the Las Vegas Raiders. But, hey, since Josh McDaniels is no longer the head coach, I am definitely a little bit more tempted to go put my money where my mouth is, and I'm probably going to be going with a lot of mores this week. Give me some Devontae Adams more, some Jacoby Myers more, some Michael Mayer more, Josh Jacobs. I might even go a little bit crazy and go Aiden O'Connell. So if you do not know, that link again is going to be down in the comments, down in the description. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. Let's go to another Josh McDaniels replacement candidate who has definitely fallen down the rankings this season. It's Mike Kafka. The biggest reason, though, why I have Kafka on this list, and I get it, Daniel Jones has been bad. The Giants' offense is the worst offense in the league. Mitch, why would you want to bring in this OC? To me, I sometimes look at, I shouldn't even say sometimes, I look at a coordinator that's been able to work underneath Brian Daboll, somebody that I have a lot of respect for. And he's been able to work underneath Andy Reid. I mean, to me right now, Andy Reid is the best head coach in football, and I don't know if it's all that close right now. So the fact that Kafka's been able to work underneath Andy Reid, he's been able to work underneath Brian Daboll. Sure, he's also worked with he's worked with Patrick Mahomes, and that helped him probably get his job to where he is at. But to me, I like what he's been able to do from a quarterback standpoint, and I think Mike Kafka should be at least a name to keep in mind. If you want to go defense, to me, this is probably going to be your top guy out there. I don't know if he's going to leave his job, because you can make an argument being the defensive coordinator to the Dallas Cowboys is better than some head coaching jobs in the NFL, and Quinn has shown that he's got that Cowboys defense, and it's gotten a lot better, and he is arguably the best defensive-minded coach in the NFL right now. I legitimately think that you can make that argument. He was the Falcons head coach from 2015 to 2020, so he has some experience there. They didn't really do too much. Like, I get the fact that they went to the Super Bowl. It was the 28-3 Super Bowl, but Dan Quinn was one of the coaches that I can go back and I can remember saying, sometimes you're not cut out to be a head coach. Some guys might be made to just be coordinators, and I do think that everyone deserves another chance, because Dan Quinn is the type of coach that you're going to want to try to run through a wall for. Kind of gives me that like Dan Campbell vibes. But again, is he just a coordinator, or can he be a head coach? Dan Quinn is a good name to keep in mind. Let's go to another McDaniels replacement candidate here. It's Brian Flores, defensive coordinator, linebackers coach for the Minnesota Vikings. And Flores, to me, I think kind of got the raw end of the deal when he was a member of the Miami Dolphins. He also has worked with the New England Patriots. This was a name that I previously brought up if they decided to keep Dave Ziegler as general manager and only move on from McDaniels. But kind of like what I said earlier about Waldron and some of these other candidates out there, if you wanted to keep a few people on this staff. Let's say Bo Hardigree, the new interim offensive coordinator, does a really, really good job. I don't know. Maybe Brian Flores would want to stick around, but Flores is a well-respected coach. He's somebody that deserves some recognition, and Flores will be a name that I'm pretty confident that the Raiders at least go out, look at as the next head coach. All right, my question is, should the Raiders go offense or defensive-minded for their next head coaching position? I know that the old saying is defense wins championships, and I know McDaniels was an offensive guru who was just offensive when it comes to actually putting a team out there on the field. But to me, if you don't have your franchise QB and you need to draft a QB, I kind of like the idea of going to the offensive mind. But hey, let me know what the nation thinks. Let's go to the next name here, and I can never get this one right. Defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm just going to call him Lou. He's 56 years old. He's done a great job continually getting that Bengals defense together. And let's face it, the Bengals get a lot of attention for the offensive side of the football with Joe Burrow, with Jamar Chase, and they put up some points. But to me, I'm looking at what Lou's been able to do against the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's held a Chiefs offense to 24 points or less in their last 3 meetings. Not many people have that much success against Patrick Mahomes. Not many people have that much success against Andy Reid. So if I could take and see what he's doing, and if the Raiders can get that going, that sounds pretty damn good. Plus, the defenses that he uses, I feel like they're always evolving year after year after year. Another candidate to keep in mind here is Jerod Mayo, linebacker, coach for the New England Patriots. And I know some of you are like, Mitch, I don't know if I want to go this route. But did you hear the way Antonio Pierce spoke? I mean, Jerod Mayo kind of gives me those vibes as well, where he's going to look at players, he's going to be able to connect, and he's going to be able to really, I think, vibe with this locker room. He was a candidate to be the Raiders head coach the last time they did interviews. He obviously did not get the job, but his connection, his previous coaching experience combined with his playing ability, I know that the Belichick tree has never worked, but if it's worked in one area, it's with Mike Vrabel, and Mike Vrabel, I think, has done a really good job down in Tennessee. They don't have a lot of talent, but that team seems to always go out there and play for him, and Jerod Mayo is going to get a head coaching job sooner rather than later. The final name that I have for you guys here is Raheem Morris, and I'm going to go with Morris here, the defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams, more because of, if you don't know if you want an offensive mind, a defensive mind, Morris is kind of like right in the middle there. He's been coaching since 2002 NFL and college ranks. He was already the Buccaneers head coach from 2009 to 2011. Didn't have a lot of success, but hey, maybe he learned from it. Maybe he got better. But then also he has experience coaching on the defensive side, coaching on the offensive side, and he's one of those really well-recognized coordinators. Earlier, the way that I talked about Dan Quinn, you can make all the exact same arguments here for Raheem Morris. Is he built to be a coordinator and not a head coach? Just a name to keep in mind. Before I leave all you guys today, I do think one more name. I don't have the graphics built for it just because, again, we were live for 26 hours yesterday. Frank Smith, Dolphins offensive coordinator, I do think is another name to at least keep in mind in terms of a head coach replacement, if you will, for McDaniels. The Las Vegas odds that have come out on who's going to be the next Raiders head coach, Ben Johnson is the favorite at plus 350. Ron Rivera is next up in line at plus 400. That one blows my mind, and it doesn't make any sense. Frank Smith at 425, Jim Harbaugh at plus 750, Dan Quinn at plus 850, Raheem Morris at plus 1,000. Then it's Deion Sanders at plus 1,200. I don't see that one happening. And then this one just blows my mind. Urban Meyer. I might rather bring back Josh McDaniels than hire Urban Meyer to be the next Raiders head coach. Make sure you guys are staying up to date on the latest Instagram, Twitter, at MitchellRenz365. I'm going to be posting a video on my social media of some of the crazy shit that happened over the last 2 hours of our 26-hour live stream. Appreciate all y'all tuning in. Appreciate everyone that was showing out during our live show. Appreciate, again, everyone here at Chat Sports that made everything happen. Peace out. Have a good night, and go Raiders.